All right, guys, we're going to be talking about writing equations of the line, giving certain information. So let's take a look. Here's the three forms that we can write an equation. We've kind of seen this when we've graphed, but first, slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. That's the easiest thing to graph with. Point-slope form we've talked about is y equals m, then x minus h plus k, where m is the slope and the point is hk. This is going to be helpful when we're writing equations, and we can easily get from this equation to slope-intercept form. And standard form is when we have something x plus something b, or something y equals c. The big rules that we have with this is a, b, and c can't be fractions, and our a, or the number in front of the x, has to be positive. And if we can reduce a, b, and c, we do that as well. So I have this on your notes, but here's the steps to solving for slope-intercept in standard form. So writing something into slope-intercept in standard form if it gives you a slope and a point. So what we'll do is we'll substitute that slope and point in for the h, k, and the m values. Then we'll distribute. Then we'll get y will be by itself. So then to get it, that's in slope-intercept form when we have it y by itself, and then we'll move our x over to the same side as y to get standard form, and you'll kind of see this in an example. So here's our first example. So find the equation for a line in slope-intercept form with a slope of -4 that passes through the point -2. So my slope, or my m, is -4, and my point is hk, which is -2, 5. So I'm going to go y equals -4, because remember my equation is y equals m x minus h plus k. So y equals -4, x minus a -2 plus 5. Okay, and remember when I have this minus a -2, that becomes a plus 2. So let's change that right away. Okay, now I want it to equal or get to y equals mx plus b. So what I need to do is distribute. So we get y equals -4 x. The -4 times +2 is -8, then plus 5. Okay. Now we're going to need to combine our like terms as our last step. So I'd have y equals -4 x, and then -8 plus 5 is -3. Okay, so that's in y equals mx plus b form. That's slope-intercept, so that is my final answer. So let's look at another example. All right, let's talk about parallel lines real quick. So parallel lines have the same slope. So anytime you hear parallel lines, you should think my slope is going to be the same. Okay, so if you take a look at this, is the red line has a slope of 1/2, and the blue line also has a slope of 1/2. And if we notice in our graph, they're never going to be touching. They're parallel lines. The other set of lines we can have is perpendicular lines, which are opposite reciprocals. So if you want to write, change the sign and flip, that's what an opposite reciprocal is. It's when it's going to be the opposite, so change the sign, and then we will flip whatever our fraction is or whatever our slope is. So if you take a look, our red slope is -2/3. So my blue slope, which is perpendicular, is going to just be a positive 3/2. Sometimes we'll have to use that when we write equations of lines. So for this example, it says find the equation of the line that is parallel to the line y equals 2/3 x minus 7 and passes through the point 3, -1. Then convert to standard form. So first it says parallel, so that tells me I'm going to use the same slope. So I'm going to use 2/3 as my m. Okay. Then our point is this hk. We do not need to worry about that -7. That's just extra information. So I'm going to write it as y equals my m, 2/3, times x minus h, so -3. Then plus k, so that's just -1 is our k. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So I have y equals 2/3 x. -3 times 2 is -6 divided by 3 is -2. Okay, -1. Combine like terms, we get y equals 2/3 x minus 3. Now I have to convert to the standard form, so I need to get everything over to one side. So I'm going to move this 2/3 x over to the other side by subtracting it to both sides. So So I'm left with negative 2/3 x plus y equals negative 3. Now remember, when we're writing in standard form, we have two rules. We can't have negatives in front of this x term, and we can't have fractions. So in order to get rid of this negative in a fraction, to get rid of a negative, I multiply everything by negative 1. And to get rid of a fraction, we'll have to multiply by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by 3. So I can actually do it in one swoop. I'm just going to multiply everything by negative 3. So that cancels this negative and 3, so I'm just left with 2x minus now 3y. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Okay? And that is my equation in standard form. Alright guys, find the equation of the line that is perpendicular to the line y equals negative 2x plus 1 and passes through the point 6, 3. Then convert to standard form. So remember, this is our HK, 6, 3. Now I need to figure out what my M is. It's perpendicular, so I need to get the opposite reciprocal slope. So my slope right now is negative 2. So my new slope, I'm going to put new M, is going to be the opposite, so a positive, and then we'll flip that. Remember, that's technically 2 over 1, so if I flip it, it'd be 1 over 2. Okay. So my new slope is 1/2. So now when I write this, I have y equals 1/2 x minus 6 plus 3. So now I'll distribute. Okay, so then I'll have y equals 1/2 x. Half of 6 is 3, so minus 3, then plus 3. Okay, so now I can combine my terms. I get y equals 1/2 x plus, well, that's just 0. So I'm going to keep that there, though, since I'm going to write it in the standard form. So the next thing I need to do is I need to move that 1/2 x over. So I'm going to subtract 1/2 x to both sides. So I'm left with negative 1/2 x plus y equals 0. Now I'm going to go ahead and times everything by negative 2 to get rid of that negative and to get rid of the fraction. So we're left with just 1x, since that cancels each other out, minus 2y equals 0. And that's our final answer in standard form. Because there's no fractions, there's no negatives. We have it as something x plus something y equals a number. All right, go ahead and try your practice problems.